have some questions from Arthur, and I think that this is really good. This is one of the outstanding questions that we've had from prior sessions, and that I continue to try to wrap my head around as someone who worked at OED for many years, but not recently. I don't know all the ins and outs of PUA, and so in any case, Arthur asked. Basically, they're asking, okay, if I list companies like Uber, Lyft, Amazon, DoorDash as my employers on the UI application, and OED states my claim is not valid, should I presume that OED has determined I'm an independent contractor and therefore eligible for PUA? And so I'm going to expand out a little bit just from what Arthur is asking, and just sort of say, and ask the broader question of how does someone know if they will be sort of going down the UI road or the PUA road? Because there have been at least some reports that I can't entirely verify, but that some Uber drivers are receiving regular unemployment insurance. And some people, and those Uber drivers were paid in 1099 wages. And so how can a claimant know, and also how does the department make that determination?
Yeah, again, really great questions, and something that we are definitely seeing a lot of in our PUA info email box. So, with regards to Uber, just a little bit of background. That's something that the Oregon Employment Department has continuously, had as wages reported to them even prior to the pandemic. In many cases, people who are working for Uber, they truly believe, Uber's my employer. And so the question becomes, is there an an employer-employee relationship? And in those cases, we have had to defer to our tax department to basically differentiate, is this somebody that is an independent contractor, or are we able to say that the employer should have been paying into an unemployment insurance tax? Because that's really the key to whether or not you should be on regular unemployment. The common misconception is that me as an employee is paying into this, but it's actually the employer that's paying into an employment related tax for unemployment insurance. So in this case, with Uber, for example, there had been ongoing discussions of whether or not they were going to pay that tax, or whether or not, again, it was independent contractor relationships. And there's since been developments, but with regards to everybody's particular situation, if you were to, let's say, apply for regular UI and list Uber and Lyft, we're still going to be sending that file over to tax, the same as if you were to submit it on the PUA application. Because again, based on our federal guidelines, we have to verify that you shouldn't be receiving regular UI. And so we do, again, rely heavily on the tax department to differentiate if those earnings that you've made with Uber, Lyft, etc., are going to be something that, again, they hold the company to the tax that they should have paid for you. Each of those situations are unfortunately very specific, because Uber operates different than Lyft, operates different than DoorDash, Amazon, etc. Some of these companies, again, very adamant that it's 1099 work. So we have to kind of run through a series of questions tax-wise to determine, are you really an employee of that person, or do you choose when you work, do you choose, the type of work that you do, etc. So I would just say, again, whether you apply on the regular UI and list Uber and Lyft, we're still going to be sending that to tax to review. And that's why some people who are listing Uber are seeing regular UI. And in that case, if you applied for pandemic unemployment assistance and listed that as well, we're going to run you through that. Hey, should we get regular UI before defaulting to the PUA claim? Because again, PUA is the claim of last resort, as we say. It should be the option that is kind of last qualified for in terms of the CARES Act. So really good question. And again, I know I can't answer it as specific, but with regards to things like 1099, it is gig economy. You are correct in applying for pandemic unemployment assistance, because normally that program is for those who are otherwise not eligible, the self-employed people.
Because
And
usually the 1099 income would not be taken into account when
yep,
you for a regular UI claim, correct? And it still isn't.
correct,
Yeah,
correct.
you only look at that. So yeah, I guess that's the question. And so for the folks who are joining us today, just so we can lift the veil a little bit, when Andrew says that they have to send it to tax, it's basically the tax department is who sort of verifies wages and what the employer contribution has been and all of that sort of stuff. And so what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that so in prior times I sort of said, well, if your company was paying this tax, then you would be in regular UI, and if it wasn't, you would be there. But what you're saying is that it's uh, the department's determination about whether they should be paying the tax, not whether they have actually paid it. Is that right?
Correct, because in the past there was a lot of people who would claim, like let's say Uber, and for a while, again, they believe that they're an employee of this organization. So the question, exactly like you phrased it, is should Uber have been paying into that unemployment insurance tax? And that's where that tax department is doing their research, trying to decipher these larger companies, or again, companies like Uber or Lyft, how much they should have contributed, or if that truly is a 1099 work. And again, it'll be different for everybody's scenario, unfortunately, because some people will be with Uber versus, like I said, DoorDash or one of those other companies. So we will be deferring to our tax department to help differentiate that. It's nothing that necessarily you as a claimant would know offhand. I personally have recommended that if somebody is applying for pandemic unemployment assistance, there is no harm for them also applying for the regular unemployment program. It's not a requirement, again, that you're, putting yourself in two different pathways, but I would say I would strongly encourage it, just because worst case scenario is, hey, we looked at your regular UI and that one doesn't qualify, but then here's your pandemic unemployment stuff already here. That doesn't mean, again, that if you didn't submit it, we're going to lose track of you or anything. Again, those that should be with regular UI are going to be contacted and helped accordingly. And those that should be pandemic unemployment assistance will have that clarity, and we'll be doing those follow up calls. Yeah.
So yeah, and that I think that's good. And let's just sort of put a finer point on that for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not, regardless of whether you did a regular UI claim or you didn't do a regular UI claim and you just did the PUA claim, that won't matter. You don't need to worry as long as you got that initial claim in of some kind, and we're doing weekly claims. OED is going to figure out who should go in what category, and so they don't need to, get worried or upset or like do a brand new. As long as they continue to do their weekly claims, then you'll make sure that they get some unemployment benefits with whatever of the three programs they may be eligible for.
Correct. If they're otherwise eligible, then we are going to, as a department, try and decipher which area of the CARES Act applies to you and then help you through that pathway. As Roland said, it's definitely bringing a bunch of people through a very small door. So that's where we're not seeing an issue with funding. We're just seeing an issue with the timing and having to differentiate between, are you regular, are you PUA, are you, again, so on and so forth. So very nicely put.
Okay. So let's go.